show.
Welcome to Major Keys. I have a very special guest today, Kendall Coyne Schofield. She is a 5-time world champion and Olympic gold medalist. She's a professional hockey player, and I'm so excited to hear her perspective on how she found sport. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Shatiana. I'm glad to be here and glad we could communicate in this way during these times.
Yeah, we seem to have a very similar passion for keeping young girls in sport. And for you, it's developing those opportunities for young girls in sport. But before we get to that, I want to know, how did you find sports?
Well, I started playing sports, all different sports, because of my older brother, Kevin. He's 3 years older than me, and my parents put him in all different sports. Being the firstborn in our family, they just wanted to see what he loved the most, and whether it was wrestling, baseball, hockey, taekwondo, he did everything. And as the younger sibling, I was brought to watch him play. And when he went into the rink and he did hockey, I told my parents, well, I want to do what he does. I don't want to just sit here and watch him. I want to do that too. And so this was, well over 25 years ago now. The girls that were in the rink were typically figure skating, or they were watching their brothers like me. And so my parents said I could play, but they got me figure skates. And then after a week in figure skates and after a week of realizing my skates are different than my brother's and I'm not on the same, ice as him, I want to do what he does. And I absolutely love figure skating. It's one of my favorite Winter Olympic sports to watch when I was at the Olympic Games. However, I was different than what my brother was doing, and I wanted to do what he did. And so after a week in figure skates, my parents got me hockey skates, and that's how I was introduced to the sport.
Yeah, and you were a multi-sport athlete. Was hockey your first sport, or and the others came along, or did you find another sport first?
Yes, and for everyone listening, I think it's so important that kids play multiple sports. I was playing multiple sports until my junior year of high school, actually, and that's when I stopped and I had that focus on hockey. But I was playing softball, baseball, track and field, basketball, and hockey. And so I was doing it all, and I'm very thankful that my parents, were able to allow me to do all those opportunities. But usually it was my brother and I were a 2-for-1 deal, and we were doing the same sports. So whatever he was doing, I was doing. And so that's where hockey came along. But I loved hockey the most. I would say, when I was doing other sports in the summer and hockey season ended, I definitely missed hockey more than I missed other sports when it wasn't, hockey season. But at the same time, I'm so thankful I had those different experiences, because I feel like I would have been burnt out playing hockey if I was just focusing on hockey from the time I started skating when I was 3 till now.
And you mentioned, skating with your brother. You played a lot with boys growing up. Whether that be because of opportunity. I read that you went out for a travel team, and you didn't make it one year, and you came back the next year, made an older boys team. Mm-hmm. Was that kind of your Michael Jordan moment? Was that the where everything got it turned for you?
Oh, aren't we all enjoying The Last Dance? I must just speak about Michael Jordan. It's been incredible. There's so many life lessons. There's just so much to learn from watching, the greatest of all time. But you could call that my Michael Jordan moment. So growing up, I was playing boys hockey. I was typically the only girl in the rink. I was the only girl in school that played hockey, and especially in the Chicagoland area where I grew up, the Chicago Blackhawks weren't as great of a team as we see today, and the games weren't on television. So a lot of the kids I grew up with in school didn't even know about the sport, whether it was, they thought of it as, a lesson in physical education class. Oh, it's street hockey. That's all they know. And then I told them I played it, and they're like, wait, I thought that was a sport for boys. So it was a really tough time in school to fit in, because no one was playing it. Definitely weren't people that were playing it weren't girls. So then when I would go to the rink, I still didn't fit in a place where I'm supposed to fit in my sport. And so, but at the same time, I realized, well, as much as these other parents want to tell my parents that I'm different and that I should go play sports that normal girls play, I knew my love and my passion for the game was deeper than anybody's negativity, and they couldn't pull that out of me, and they couldn't define that for me. I defined it for myself through my love and my passion every single time I laced up my skates. When my brother made the jump to travel hockey, and of course, me being the annoying little sister, I'm like, well, I want to do that too. And so my parents said, okay, we'll allow you to try out if you want, to make that jump of that commitment to travel hockey. And so I tried out. And I ended up getting cut, and I didn't know it at the time, but my parents told me years later that I got cut because I was a girl, and the coach thought I would cause problems in the locker room, and he didn't want a girl on his team. And so my mindset back then was like, well, I need to work harder. I need to get better. It is what it is. And I still love this game. I'm still going to put everything I can into it and enjoy this hockey season. And I did that. And a year later, my parents said, well, okay, she keeps getting cut from this organization. Let's go somewhere else. And so I tried out for a level up, which is called AAA hockey. And so I got cut from the AA team. So I tried out for this AAA team, and I was a year younger than all of the boys. And I ended up making the team. And I remember thinking, okay, I know this is a pretty big step and I do fit in here. So, no one ever said anything. So I realized the higher and higher that I got up in the game, the less, critics and the less negativity. And it was, game recognizes game. And these people didn't look at me as someone that was different. They looked at me as a hockey player. And that's, for us in women's hockey, that's all we've asked. That's all we want. Just view me as a hockey player. Don't view me any differently than you do, the boy or the man sitting aside me.
Kendall, I will tell you, my next question for you was, how were you treated by the boys on your teams? And then I wrote in the notes, game recognized game. So
you get it.
That's the truth.
You've been through it. Yeah.
That's the truth. Men who have gone through the same thing and worked their way up the same way we have, building up our skill and our strength and all those different things, they recognize that it's an even playing field. We're not less than, we're just as good. So I love that. And clearly we were on the same page with that.
Mm-hmm.
What impact did sports have on you at a young age? You talk about, coming back even stronger and, persevering through the critics. What else did hockey in particular teach you?
Sports has been such a big part of my life. I don't want to say it is my life because I think I'm much greater than, just a sport, but without sport, there's many things that I would not have ever accomplished or encountered without my love and, my passion for sports. And one of those is being able to travel the world with Team USA and meet my best friends. And I have to say my best friends have definitely come through sport, because those are the people that I relate to, that understand what the daily grind is like when you're, in high school, when you're not going to prom and you're not going to the, to the social events, and it's Friday night and you're resting because you have a game Saturday night, and they don't understand that, your teammates get that, and they don't find that odd. They don't find that, selfish or whatever it might be. They're just as committed to you are. So my greatest friends have definitely come through sport, and, I'll cherish those relationships forever. And then the other thing too is being able to get a college education and play the sport I love. And hockey was such a financially demanding sport on my parents, and they sacrificed so much for me to play the sport. So to be able to get a college scholarship and hopefully pay them back in some small way, it, was so important to me. And, when I started playing when I was 3 years old, I never imagined that I would, go to the Olympics and go to college and do all of these things. It was a little girl who loved the sport more than anything. And that's what got me to where I am today. So it's been an incredible journey. And I think that's what I love so much about sports. It's the journey. It's the little stories in between those championship moments that everybody sees. It's the moments that no one sees and that you remember forever. And everyone talks about, like, whether it's the locker room, the bus rides, the team songs. I know, I'm sure you have this, you have like a win song and you hear that song and you just instantly get a smile and think about your teammates and the moments that led up to that song. And you can't put it into words or describe it to somebody else, but it's just so powerful. And I would encourage everybody to get involved in sports in whatever capacity that might be. That doesn't mean you need to be a player to be involved in sport. There's so many ways to be involved, but it's just such an amazing camaraderie of people that come together. And it's really a microcosm of society.
I think that is one of the things that is overlooked often when we talk about keeping young girls in sport, is that the building of friendships and lifelong friendships that you have in, having a common language, and more than just pushing through obstacles and things like that. Like, having teammates is one of the greatest parts of sport. You talk about the journey. Who were some of your role models during this journey when you were, growing up, aspiring to be an Olympian?
Yeah. So right away, like I said before, that I didn't really see any other girls that were playing hockey, and I didn't see women's hockey on TV. And unfortunately, here we are 25 years later, and you barely still see it on TV. And it's something that needs to change. And I think it needs to change for a lot of sports. But growing up, I loved Chris Chelios. I was number 7 for a lot of my career for him. And then I met Cami Granado. And I don't know if you want to call it another Michael Jordan moment. I didn't get cut or anything, but I finally saw someone that looked like me, that did what I did. And then my dreams and my goals changed. And I wanted to aspire to be her. And I wanted to aspire to go to the Olympic Games and win a gold medal. When before I was like, oh, I want to be like my brother. He wants to go to the NHL, win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, I want to raise that cup over my head too. That's the pinnacle of our sport. And then it, becomes a reality. Well, that's not for you. That's for him. And I was like, well, what is it for me? And then you realize, okay, so the pinnacle is the Olympic Games. And meeting Cami Granato was such a moment that changed my life forever. And it's something that, like, the feeling of empowerment she gave me is something that sticks with me to this day, because, as soon as I graduated college and I was able to host my own hockey camp, I was like, I'm doing this because that's what Cami did. And Cami changed my life, and she changed so many lives of players who won a gold medal 2 years ago at the Olympic Games because they saw her and they saw her teammates and they saw women's Olympic hockey on TV for the first time in '98. And they were like, oh, so this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I belong. How do I get there?
Visibility and representation on TV, like you mentioned, is so important. And in 2019, you participated in the All-Star NHL Skills Challenge. How important is that for a young hockey player?
It's so important. And I think when I think back to that moment, that moment wasn't about who skated it. It was the platform that it was skated on. And that platform was alongside the greatest players in the National Hockey League in the year of 2019. And there's so many people that tune into that event year by year. They see those players on a regular basis, but there definitely was one player out there that they don't see on a regular basis, which I wish they did. And that was me. And I was doing something that I've been doing since I was 3 years old. I've been skating like that, since I started skating. Skating's always been my strength. And so I knew that I had the opportunity to really showcase the women's game and to showcase that girls do belong in this sport from the time that they're however old they start. You're never too old or you're never too young to start the game. But that was an opportunity to show, like, look, we belong in this sport too. And credit is due to the National Hockey League for providing that platform. And I do think we earned that platform, because if they didn't think that we could seize that moment, and I mean we, because there were a lot of players who came before me and a lot of players who skate alongside me on a regular basis that earned that moment because of the product that we've put on the ice day by day to prove that women's hockey has grown substantially in the last 20 years. And we deserve a platform like that one on a regular basis to showcase our game, because everyone thinks women's hockey is only relevant every 4 years when they see it at the Olympic Games, but we're working every day. It's not every 4 years. So where and how can we build a platform together that showcases our game, collectively and routinely?
And you and your teammates have done a great job in pushing that forward and wanting to make headway for young girls in that space. And in 2017, your team decided together that it would be important to, possibly go on strike ahead of the World Championships. And one of those things that you all were pushing for was that there would be more opportunities for young girls in hockey. And this is different from things like, the WNBA, they just passed a new CBA. Obviously, the women's national team for soccer similarly have been pushing against their national governing body. Mm-hmm. I think what's different, though, is that the pay difference in these areas, right? So you all had a lot on the line not participating. Things like if you're a full-time hockey player, you may not be able to make ends meet in a certain way without having a second job. And I think some of those other leagues may not be in that same circumstance. So I think you all had a lot more to lose. Why was it so important? And how did you and your teammates come together and say, well, we want to create these opportunities and we want to improve the game so much so that we are willing to risk so much?
Yeah, so I think in order to be successful in anything, you have to have one collective voice. And dating back to 2016, 2017 season, we had the right group of players, the group of players that were willing to put their foot down and say enough is enough. We're currently making $24,000 a year from the USOPC, which was the USOC at that time. And we're told to be an elite athlete and happy to represent our country, that they don't make us represent our country. They don't make us train and eat and sleep and put in the, resources that it takes to be elite and win a gold medal. We're not telling you to do all those things. That's your choice. And so with the $24,000 we were getting, I mean, you can't live on that, let alone be professional or elite in a sport, in any capacity. And so we had the right group, and the negotiations were more than those 2 weeks in which we went public and we said we were going to boycott the World Championships. But we knew as a group we didn't have much leverage because we never really had much before, and our only leverage was to boycott the World Championships that were on home soil for the first time since 2012. And so we said, you know what? We have to be willing to commit as a group. If we don't come to an agreement and significant progress is not made, we have to be comfortable not playing. And it's really tough. And I've even thought about it a lot during this time because we didn't play the World Championships this past April because of the coronavirus. So even missing these worlds, it eats you away a little bit, thinking, my clock is ticking. I don't know if I'll get another opportunity. We had 5 rookies that were going to make their national team debut, and your heart hurts for them as well. And so thinking like, wow, this could have been the reality of 2017 if significant progress wasn't made. But significant progress was made, and even more so, we won the tournament. And they always say put your money where your mouth is, but we definitely did, and we won, and it was a sold out building, and it was incredible. But 3 of the main buckets that we were fighting for one was compensation, one was marketing, and one was more programming. And I know it's different than the WNBA and what the women's soccer team has fought for, but we've looked to them, we've called them, we've relied on them, and they have forged a path for a sport like us who's a little bit behind basketball and a little bit behind soccer. And we've looked to them and, okay, how did you do it? What do our lawyers are the same lawyers at Ballard and Spar who represented the 99 soccer team. And so finally, everyone is, helping each other, and we've looked to those women for leadership and guidance, and we were able to be successful. And I think too, when we were successful, we've seen this sport grow so much greater than just those players on that team. And that's what this fight was for. And you even look at the National Hockey League right now, and a year ago, there were 7 organizations that had all girls programming. Now there's 24. And to see that jump in just 1 year, and I've seen it firsthand by the work that I do with kids in the community, that there's so many parents that are willing to sign their young girl up for sport because it's for all girls. And my parents didn't think anything of it, and my parents took some heat for it, being like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you putting your little girl in a sport that's for boys? Like, do you realize she's different? Do you realize she doesn't fit in?" My parents were like, "You go tell her that. She's dragging us out of bed every morning. She's making us take her. We're doing, she loves this." Like, no, she doesn't view that. But now, parents don't have to overcome that hurdle for their young girl. There's families now where their firstborn is a girl and she says, "I want to play hockey." She doesn't have an older brother, and she's not looking to her older brother to say, "I want to do what he does." She's saying, "I want to play hockey," and her younger brother saying, "I want to do what she does." And to see that transition has been because of the implementation of all girls programming around the United States and the growth of the game. And so it's been exciting to see. And I really do think we're heading in the right direction in terms of girls and women's hockey in the United States.
I watched a panel you were a part of for the Women's Sports Foundation, and you said a young girl came up to you and said, "I want to be just like you." Your response to her was that, "No, I want you to be better than me, and I want the game to be better for you when you get to it." What things do you want to make better for her?
So when my brother and I were growing up alongside each other playing the same sport we loved, he knew he could always make a living playing this game if he was good enough to do so. I can't, and that's still the reality to this day. And so I want a young girl to grow up and be able to play the sport she loves and know she can make a living doing it. And if that's sports hockey, I am working every single day along with a lot of my teammates to fight so that opportunity is available for that young girl to grow up and be a professional hockey player and make a living doing it, because they can't right now. And it doesn't really hit you until you're going through the college recruiting process. And that's when it really hit home for me that, okay, I need to pick a school that's going to set me up for a job after college. And I know that job's not hockey. So, I need to figure that out. Where I know my husband, he plays professional football, and he picked a school that was going to help him get an education, but then also help him pursue his career to be a professional football player. And so when does that landscape change? When does a woman who played hockey in college graduate, get drafted to a team and pack her life up and go to a city to win a championship? We all just saw that happen to Sabrina Ionescu, a couple of weeks ago with the WNBA. She's packing her life up, going across the country from California to New York or Oregon to New York. And she's trying to win a championship for that city. And that city picked her because of her merit, not because of convenience. And right now, in order for a woman to continue to play hockey after college, you have to get a job that helps you live a sustainable life, and then also allows you to maybe miss a day of work here and there so you can continue to play hockey. If you don't have that full-time job that anchors your life, you can't play hockey. And so when does that change? When do those tides turn where you're graduating and you're looking for the best training opportunity, the best team, who wants to pick you up and win a championship for that city. And then you do something on the side if you are able to. But right now we can't. You immediately look for that job and you continue to play hockey on the side.
Well, Kendall, with your passion, it is evident that someday for that young girl that will actually happen because of the work that you're doing. What is your favorite female sports moment as we start to wrap up?
My favorite female sports moment, did you say?
Of all time. Yep. Female sports moment.
Oh, of all time.
Yes.
There's a lot. I have so many.
Okay. Well, give me maybe 2 or 3. Your top 2 or 3.
I was young, but I love when Brandi Chastain ripped off her shirt and it just was such a powerful and iconic moment that we were able to meet Brandi when we played a game in San Jose, and just to see her, I was like, can you rip your shirt off again? Like, this is amazing. And like, just to see her and just the power of that moment, because you know what, that was an athlete that celebrated that so authentically. It didn't matter what was underneath that shirt. It was a champion. It was nothing else but a champion. And I think that was an incredible moment.
Replays? What? Have you seen the replays of the 99 game?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. They've been playing a lot lately, so I've just been watching. Yeah.
Yeah, Julie Foudy has been an incredible ambassador for all women in sport, but especially for us in hockey. She's been so helpful to us. And, when you get to know them as people, you understand, just the fight that they went through. And we've learned so much from them. And I'm just so thankful for their leadership and guidance and friendship. I wish I was a little bit older in 99, but at the same time, I've watched it, hundreds of times since. Yeah. Another pretty iconic moment for women in sport was when Manon Rhéaume played in 92 in an exhibition game with the Tampa Bay Lightning. She was a goaltender. She was my hockey coach actually as well. So that was pretty cool to be able to work side by side with her. Anytime you get to see Serena play tennis, I think is iconic. I can keep going. And,
I agree.
And then I would say too, I think I'm so bummed about, and I think we're all impacted in some way, but I was really looking forward to watching Simone Biles make history this summer. And, that's another one. She's another athlete I look at and I just draw so much inspiration from. She's just so dominant. I mean, we're watching The Last Dance, and I think we see someone who's equally dominant in their sport. Like we see Michael Jordan. I mean, Simone Biles has done that, her whole career. So I'm trying to think if there was. This is a hard question for a sports junkie. I mean, there's so many.
No, I think that those are fantastic. I'm hoping that we get to see Simone Biles, continue to make history, because obviously gymnastics is a little time sensitive, but I mean, she's shown that she has no limit so far. So I have no doubt that she'll.
How about Katie Ledecky? Oh, I can't. Yeah. All these are just incredible athletes. They've pushed the boundaries. I think they've opened the eyes of people who didn't think women could accomplish what they accomplish, and they've exceeded even those expectations. And I think when they succeed in the way that they do, people don't see them as a gender. They see them as an athlete. And they're just such iconic women because they're just so amazing at what they do, that they smash all stereotypes, all perceptions. They just are game and talent. What are your top sports moments?
I know. I felt like you were going to turn that on me. Okay. So, I guess I've never thought about this. For women's basketball, because that's what I grew up playing, for me, it was, I guess, watching Tennessee during that 2008 era. I talked about this on a few of my other episodes. It's that golden era. There's Candace Parker, Maya Moore, that group of people. So that, oh my goodness, Kendall, you're putting me on the spot. I'm trying to think what Olympic moments I've watched recently. Serena's like my all-time favorite, I think. And I'm not really into tennis, to be honest with you, but she's just one of those people, like you said, what am I trying to say? Transcend sport.
Yeah.
And they become bigger than their sport. So I didn't grow up watching tennis, but pretty much anytime Serena's on the television, I'm going to be there. Yep. Surprisingly, the U.S. women's soccer team, I've been a junkie since about 2011 with Amy Wambach. So I guess her goal against Brazil, that will be the one for me to get them out of the semifinals.
Good one.
That one's huge.
Yes.
Those are what come to mind right now. Oh, but I feel like I have a lot more, but I feel like the Brandy Chastain one, that one's amazing. I mean, I was rewatching the rerun the other day and just like chills everywhere. Just the thought that, they knew going into that game how big the game was and how big it was going to be for young girls. To me, I live for that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point you brought up with how big the 99 moment was for young girls and how it inspired a whole generation. I think, I didn't even mention the one in my own sport, but I was fairly young, but it was the 98 women's hockey team. That was the inauguration of women's hockey at the Olympic Games. And that was, such a big moment for our sport and for a lot of people to realize, oh, girls and women do play hockey. Yeah. That was another one that it's just crazy how they were back-to-back years with hockey and soccer. And here we are, 20 years later, and, we're looking to soccer for advice and we're, we're still in this, fight together, which it's been cool to see. And it's been awesome to develop relationships with, so many of the soccer players and, we're all in it together.
Right. Which I'm glad to hear that that's how this has been working for your team. Cause you mentioned we might be a few years behind, or I think you said 20 other sports, but I'm glad to know that each team or each program is kind of pulling the other along and giving advice in that way, because I mean, that's the only way we're going to get it done.
And setting the standard, right? Like I remember, I think I shed a tear when NECA was on Good Morning America and they announced the 8-year CBA agreement. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then she goes, we know we have women's hockey looking up to us. And I was like, and I was like, wow, like, your dreams aren't too big. Like, look at what they just accomplished. We haven't even dug the dirt of our foundation for women's professional hockey yet. And, I think women's basketball is obviously built a foundation. So we have a long way to go, but just, hearing and seeing the fight that they've been successful in and continue to be successful in only provides optimism through like our long days and our hard fights. And we look to them for so much support and guidance because they show it can be done.
Yeah. And I think marketing, so important. I'm so glad that you mentioned that about, what you all were fighting for back in 2017. WNBA, the same thing. It's, it's so much about marketing and getting our stories out there, because I just feel like when the players, it is so much easier to support. And again, that is why, I do this project.
But, I think for us in women's sports, it just gets old when people say, oh, well, you can't fill the building, we lose money and it's not enjoyable to watch. And, I challenge people to say, well, have you ever been to a women's sporting event? And likely, the answer is no. And then the other thing too is, how much has, the organizing body invested into that program, because you're as good as your investment. So if you're not investing with the same resources and the same marketing, well, there's a reason that the building's empty. No one knows that they're playing. So you have to put in something in order to get a return on your investment. And that goes for the players' resources and the marketing of that team or those players. Just like you said, like telling their stories, banners, flyers, TV ads, making sure the games are on TV with a media deal. And it just really seems that the WNBA has really transcended into that path of we're going to put ourselves in the best position to succeed and fill buildings and do as much as we can, but then also put some ownership on other people to be like, look, we can't do it all as players.
My last question to you is, so I call the show Major Keys, and I ask my guests at the end of every episode, what is one major key that you would give to young girls or women out there that are trying to achieve it and break barriers?
A major key that I would give to young athletes anywhere is to always follow your dreams, always believe in yourself, and be willing to put the work in order to accomplish those dreams. And it's not always easy. There's going to be bumps along the way, but stay true to your dreams, to who you are, and you can accomplish anything you set your mind to.
keys, keys. I got them keys.